Welcome back to Not So Grand Garage. Today I'm out in the shop and we are going to be working on this 2016 Chrysler Town & Country. It's got the 3.6 62 TE transmission, and over the next couple months we're going to be catching it up on some basic maintenance. We're going to be getting down in here, replacing the oil filter housing and oil cooler assembly. It is not leaking currently, but it's got 129,000 miles on it and they are prone to failure. So we've got one of those from Mopar, so we'll be replacing that as a preventative. Also, today we're going to be getting underneath this thing and servicing this sealed transmission. Chrysler claims, at least in some instances, that the ATF +4 transmission fluid they run in these things is a lifetime fill fluid. That's not the case. Service them out usually every 30 to 50K. This one's got 129 on it now, and I do not know if it's ever been serviced. So we're going to go on and catch it up on service. I'm going to put a pan on it that's got a drain plug in it. That'll make future changes really easy. With that said, I will probably service it out this time, and next time it's due for an oil change, I'll probably dump the fluid out of it and just do a fluid change on it, just to get as much of the old fluid out of it as possible. Right now this thing shifts really well and we want to keep it that way. So anyways, let's get at it. Camera's dying, so I'm using my handy JS3000 jump pack to keep me topped up. So I'm on a tether for now. Anyways, for filter, we are going to be using this Wix 58128, which does come with a pan gasket. The factory setup in these is sealed with just a black RTV. For the pan, here is the pan we're going to be using. Dipstick. This is a Dorman pan. It is really heavy built. This pan's got quite a bit of weight to it. It's not just a thin stamping. It's got a nice drain plug on it. And let's see if there's a part number on this box. Nope. So I'll put the part number in the video description. I'll have links to all this stuff as well. I'll be using an OTC 7446 Chrysler transmission dipstick. These do not have a dipstick on them. And I've never had to have this tool, so I decided to just go on and buy one to keep it on the shelf. But with that said, there are different tricks. You can mark the engine oil dipstick. There's a guide to how to do that, multiple guides floating around online. You can just mark that dipstick and use it for both. That's a really common thing to do. Also, for fluid, the cheapest fluid I could find, actually, was Mopar ATF +4. Got it on the jungle site, 6 quarts for like 40 bucks. Isn't terrible considering most places are over $10 a quart for ATF +4. So again, I'll leave links to all this stuff in the video description. But for right now, since we are replacing this pan and I don't really want to make a giant mess, I'm going to slide under here and drill a hole in the current pan, let it drain out, and go from there. We'll let that drain and get that pan pulled off. So we got the pan pulled off. Let's see here. Nothing too crazy in the pan. A little bit of metal buildup on the magnet, which is normal. And yeah, no chunks, nothing that's real surprising. Fluid was a little dark, but not burnt by any means. With 129,000 on it, it's going to be a little dark. That's just it's the fluid doing its job. So I'm gonna go on and drop this filter. This has not been serviced before. Still got a Chrysler filter on it. Was still sealed with the black RTV around the edge. So yeah, hopefully we don't have any issues. Sometimes when you service higher mileage transmissions for the first time, when they've never been done, you can run into problems. But I've never had that experience. Oh no, I take that back. I had one lose a shift solenoid shortly after being serviced, and that's because some stuff broke free and plugged the solenoid up. But with that said, this transmission's looking really clean. I don't see any real heavy buildup or anything like that. The case looks clean, so I don't think we'll have any issues. But yeah, I'm gonna go on and drop the filter and get it changed out, and we're gonna let this drip drain for a little while. As you can see, it's still running out of the case up there. But we want that flange as clean and dry as possible when I go to put the pan back on. But yeah, there's also, I'll show you this, there is a seal up in the case where this filter locks into. The filter kit will come with a new one. 9 times out of 10, I don't change them if they're good. So once you drop the filter down, take your finger and slide up in there and make sure that the rubber's still pliable. And when you slide the new filter up in place, make sure it's a nice, tight, snug fit around the filter. If not, you're gonna need to change it. The reason I don't change them is because it's very easy to damage the transmission case while you're trying to get that filter or that seal out of place. And to be honest, most dealerships, most transmission shops, when they do a pan drop, they're not going to change it either, because they know that it's more of a hassle than it's worth. They don't typically leak, they don't typically fail, but like I said, just check it out, make sure it's still pliable and it gets a good seal on the filter when it goes back up in place. It is not the only thing that holds the filter in on these. They're bolted in as well, so there's not any pressure on it. All it is just to seal the filter to the case. But anywho, I'm gonna go on and drop this filter and get this wrapped up. So got our magnet cleaned off, put back in the new pan. Got our Wix filter, pan gasket, which I will be using. And this is the little seal I was talking about. You see it presses into the transmission case, and this seals around the filter. But like I said, if the one in the case is good and the filter fits tightly, don't replace it. It's more of a hassle than it's worth. Lubricate this up with a little bit of transmission fluid before popping it into place. And like I said, just make sure it feels good and snug when it pops in. If it doesn't, go on and replace that seal. Got our pan bolts torqued to 108 inch-pounds. Now, with the drain plug in the pan, be sure to make sure the drain plug is tight before getting the vehicle off the jack stands and filling the transmission back up. Now for filling the transmission back up, this right here, if you can see my fingers, right here, this little cap is what you're looking for. That is the fill tube. So that cap needs to come off, and you'll either need to get a long transmission style funnel or one of the bottle pumps, something like that, to fill the transmission back up. In this case, the harness runs right over the top of the fill tube, which is ideal placement and good thinking on Chrysler's part. But yeah, so I'll probably just use a little bottle pump or something like that. I'm going to start with between 4.5 to 5 quarts. A pan drain and filter change is typically like 5.5 quarts on these transmissions. So I'm going to start around 4.5 to 5, and we'll start it up, run it through the gears, sitting here. Then we'll start checking our fluid levels, and we'll let it warm up. One thing you will need is a scan tool that can see transmission temperature and monitor that, because there's a chart that goes with this transmission that gives you the specific height on the dipstick, I believe in millimeters, based on temperature. So it's kind of odd, but that's the way they chose to do it. So you will need that. You can use a temperature gun, like an IR gun, on the pan, but it won't be precise. So just keep that in mind. The reading on the gun will be cooler than the actual fluid temperature is in the pan. But anywho, I'm going to figure out how I can get fluid back in this thing and start filling it back up. So we got our little plug out. Needs for dealer use only. Yeah, sure thing. Anywho, we're gonna go on and get this filled up. I've got my funnel that I think I can weasel down in here. Yeah. Just make sure it's down in the fill tube, and make sure your funnel's clean. Like I said, I'm gonna go on and put 4.5, 5-ish quarts in. Then we'll start it up, start checking fluid levels, and go from there. So we've got the van idling, got the scan tool on it, monitoring transmission temperature in real time. Based on our chart here, not sure if you'll be able to see it, if it'll focus or not. We're gonna let it get up to 80 degrees. At 80 degrees, we should be between 4 and 18, 19-ish on the dipstick, which is right here. And I'll open this up and let you see what that means. So here we have our nice long dipstick, and there are markings on the dipstick from 120 down to nothing. So at 80 degrees, we want to be around the 20 mark. And I believe this will fit through our funnel, which it will. So we'll be able to slide that all the way down through the funnel. There is a stop in the pan. You just fish this straight down until the dipstick can't go any further, and then pull it back out and you'll get your reading. So we will wait, let this warm up. I'll cycle it through the gears a couple times, help it warm up a little bit, and check it out. Now we're up to 100-ish degrees, and we ran into some issues with our fancy OTC dipstick, as it wouldn't go down the tube. So I've got the engine oil dipstick marked. Let it go all the way down and bottom out. Come up, take a peek. It is spot on my mark, which at 100 degrees should be a little over 25 on this, which is where we're at. So I'm gonna call that good. We're gonna take this thing for a drive, let it warm up, make sure it shifts good, keep an eye on temperatures, and we'll bring it back in, get it on flat surface again, and check fluid again. And I'm gonna send that OTC dipstick that I paid $65 for right back where it came from. But yeah, let's take it for a drive and hope it has gears. Just got back from our drive. Transmission temperature is around 129, 130. So I went on and marked the dipstick with a little hash mark, with silver, a shiny hash mark, which is about 35 on our fancy OTC dipstick that didn't fit. So let's see where we're at. We are spot on where we need to be. So I'm gonna call this good to go. Alrighty, so we got our transmission filled back up. Get this plug put back in, which is kind of tricky because of everything that's in the way, but that's okay. Got that done. So, was it detrimental to this thing to change the transmission for the first time at 129,000 miles. No, it shifts great. It shifts just like it did before, and it really wasn't having any issues. So I just wanted to keep up on maintenance. So yeah, as long as it's not been abused and flogged 129K, I would go in and service it out. Honestly, if you're daily driving, I would service these transmissions at 50,000 and do that every 50,000 miles. If you're being harder on them, carrying a lot of weight, if you got a lot of people in the van all the time, if you're towing a little pop-up camper or something like that with them, I know a lot of people do, service them at 30K. It will make this transmission last a lot longer. They get a bad rap, but most of that comes from lack of maintenance. So anyways, I am going to wrap this up here. As far as this OTC fancy $60 dipstick, I was finally able to finagle this down in there and get an accurate reading. But before, it felt like it was bottoming out, and it wasn't. It was hitting the base of the tube, not the stop in the pan. So that caused me to overfill it by about a half quart, which thankfully, with the drain plug in it, wasn't hard to drain fluid back out of it. So I got that corrected. I really don't think it's worth spending $65 on a dipstick when you can measure your oil dipstick and mark it for high and low on the back side and use it for both. There's write-ups. I may see if I can find one and put a link in the video description to show how to do that. So, but yeah, I'm not disappointed with how accurate monitoring the transmission temperature is and checking the fluid level is. It does make this process a lot more accurate. People wonder why they don't provide dipsticks on a lot of transmissions nowadays, and that's because back in the day, people, when they would change fluid in them, wouldn't fill them up properly. They wouldn't check them based on how the manufacturer says. Some say it should be idling in park, some say it should be idling in neutral. They didn't check transmission temperature, so they would either be way underfilled, way overfilled, and end up tearing the transmission up. And the manufacturers decided to eliminate that as a problem, or as a possibility, by deleting dipsticks and making sealed transmissions, so you have to take it to a dealer to be serviced. Which, in this case, you don't. You can do it yourself. It's not that big of a deal. And if I wasn't running the camera, it probably would have taken a half hour or so. But we're under here, we're checking for leaks. No leaks that I can see. I got a mess on the floor. If you're doing a transmission service and you don't get something on the floor, you're doing it wrong. But anywho, like I said, I'll leave links to everything I used in the video description, so check that out. If you would, hit that thumbs up button. It helps us out quite a bit. It doesn't cost you anything. If you want to support the channel, you can hit up the website, www.notsograndgarage.com. You can get our black diesel gear, our merch, stuff like that. And also, we've got a PayPal account set up, so if you just want to send a donation to help the channel out, you can do it that way too. That's about it. I try to answer all the comments, so if you got any comments, questions, complaints, drop them down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We appreciate you watching.